Welcome back to What Not to Do When Planning a Wedding. And can I just say before we get into the intros, if you are enjoying this podcast, please make sure you like, you follow, you leave us a 5-star review telling us what you love. If you don't love it, don't say anything. Got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Thank you. I'm Zoe Burke. I'm the editor of Hitched.
I'm Nina. I'm a wedding consultant and I specialise in on-the-day coordination, and I've got 20 years experience in events.
And we're here to tell you what not to do when planning a wedding.
Yeah, when do I get to stop saying that I've got 20 years of experience in events, because it makes me feel really old?
I was going to say when you get 25 years, but no, sorry. So yeah, we need to talk about the wedding morning, because in our previous episode, we obviously did the run up to the wedding. Yeah. We did, how to plan, how guest list, budgets.
We touched a little bit on the wedding morning, a few things, but there's a lot to consider.
It's a whole episode's worth, so get yourself ready. And disclaimer, we are talking here about a civil wedding ceremony, but a lot of this stuff will apply to various different types of weddings.
Exactly. I think that there's very few weddings where you don't need to have a legal ceremony as well, if you want to be legally married. So we're talking mainly about civil, but the things that we're talking about apply to all types of ceremonies. So we're keeping it as general as possible, but going along the civil lines.
Yeah, that's our disclaimer. And I should also say, if you're wondering where we are in the beautiful Zetter Townhouse in Clerkenwell, who very kindly let us do our podcast here, and we're very grateful for that. So let's get on to this wedding morning. You are there on the morning.
I am.
By that point, my job's done. I've told you how to plan your wedding. I've got my feet up. I'm not there. So what happens? Is it chaos?
Well, it can be.
Yeah.
It depends. And as we've spoken about before, you have to think about the wedding morning and who you have around you and how zen it's going to be and what you want. But I think there's a few things that you can do to really help make that wedding morning something that's enjoyable. So yeah, there's a few little, should we say bugbears that I've got?
Okay, and this is what not to do?
This is what not to do at your wedding.
What do we not do?
Okay, number 1, buttonholes. Oh my God. Can we please not just present 10 buttonholes to one of the partners who didn't order the buttonholes and therefore has no idea who they're for? Honestly, it's painful. I'll literally be running back and forth, going from one partner who ordered them, knew who they were for, back to the outside or the different part where maybe like the groom's getting ready with his people, and I'll be like, right, here are your buttonholes, and then I'll have like 3 spare and no one knows who they're for. So can we start labelling buttonholes with the names of the people that they're for? And that is something that you can have a chat with your florist and say, I really want this to happen because actually my partner hasn't got a clue who they're for. I've done the ordering, I know how many they are, so I just want to make sure that they're there. Also,
yes.
I mean, how long am I allowed to speak about buttonholes for?
You've probably reached the limit.
Oh, man. Okay, one really quick one. If we're doing buttonholes for the ladies, can we not use pins?
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Can we not? Okay, can we stop using... Right, okay, let me caveat this. Right. Pins on suits. I'm going to take this back, actually. The ladies wearing a suit, it's different. We can use pins. But very often, if ladies are wearing dresses, fine material, that kind of thing, a pin... A is ruining that dress, and B ends up stabbing them unless you've got someone who's done it 10,000 times and knows how to not. That's fine. But what I end up doing, if it isn't, I end up also going onto their bra strap.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm getting very intimate with these poor old nans.
And assuming they're wearing a bra, but
yes,
if it is poor old nan,
bless her. I'm like right in there. I am. I'm like right in there trying to get this buttonhole on them and then not stab this poor little old lady with a pin. So magnets for ladies if their dress is flimsy, but if they're wearing a suit or a jacket, great, that's fine.
You could go for a corsage even.
Corsages on the wrists are lovely, yeah. And also the other thing, just on buttonholes, right? Pins on suits are the ultimate. They are the best thing to use. But we started seeing some of those like badge pins, like if you had a badge when you were little and you got a pin at the right. So they put that on the back of the buttonhole. They don't always work either. Right. So have a conversation with your florist about the fixings. I know this is such a minor thing, but they're in the photos. You've paid a lot of money for these buttonholes, and depending on how many you've had, that's added up.
You don't want a floppy one.
You don't want a floppy buttonhole. No one wants a floppy buttonhole. That's why you need some pins, okay? So pins are really good. The badge pins depends on the weight of the buttonhole as to how sturdy that's going to be. And just be aware when you put them on that people are going to come up and hug you constantly, and that you've got to protect this baby until after some photos, get 3 ceremony at least, maybe have a spare.
Refuse to hug anyone.
Or refuse to hug anybody, yeah.
And on that, we should talk a little bit about flowers too, the bouquets, because you once told me this tip. It's my favourite tip I think I've ever been told about weddings. This is the best tip you are ever going to get if you are having flowers on the morning of your wedding.
Okay, so you've got your bouquet. It goes bits, not tits, people, okay? This is where you hold your bouquet. It is down here, bits, not tits.
We're going to put that on a T-shirt. And the other thing about your bouquet as well is that when it arrives in the morning, it's going to be a bit wet.
Right, so here's the big thing. I actually had this the other day. Bride rocked up outside the venue with her bouquet still in the vase of water.
Oh, no.
Loved it. So your bouquet should be dried a good half an hour before the ceremony. Not too soon, we don't want them wilting, we want them to look as fresh as possible, but about half an hour beforehand, it would be really good to have them all dried.
That's a wedding party job.
It's a wedding party job,
Someone
absolutely, unless you've got a planner or a coordinator there, that's different.
Delegate.
Yeah. So dry your bouquets, because what we don't want is, remember we're holding them by our bits, we don't want wet bits.
People will think you're nervous, like really, really nervous.
Absolutely. So make sure you hold your bouquets down here, but they are dry, especially if you've got like silky dresses and things like that. We don't want anything along those lines.
You just don't, you're walking down the aisle moment, 2 years of build up, you're outside with a wet patch. No. What not to do at your wedding, have a wet patch on the front of your dress. So also, I guess along those lines, you talked about labelling the buttonholes, but there's other things that need to be done in the morning to make sure things go smoothly. Right? Yeah,
so just think about in the morning what you want to be doing or don't want to be doing. What you don't want to be doing in the morning of your wedding is taking all of the labels off the bottoms of your shoes, pulling labels off of, pashminas, anything along those lines. Cut the vents on the suits, like the back of the suits that you've got that little cross at the back.
Yep.
Cut those.
Yes.
Don't arrive to your venue with those still tied up. All of these little things you can do way before the wedding and have it really chilled in the morning, that you're not scrounging around trying to find scissors and things like that to get them off, or a bit of the sticker stayed on the bottom of the shoe. That's the worst. And that's for everybody. Yes. Anyone in your wedding party.
And talking of the wedding party, they've got jobs to do.
They have.
And we need to brief them because there's things they could be doing. So, for example, getting the bouquets out to dry.
Yeah.
Ushers. What do ushers do? People ask me this a lot.
Okay. Ushers usher.
Yeah.
That's what ushers do. So I think that there's a few things here about briefing your wedding party and how much responsibility and jobs you give your wedding party. Now, I feel quite strongly about this coming from a coordinator point of view, in that I truly believe that every guest, no matter how close you are to them, is there as a guest.
Yep.
So the amount of jobs that these people should be doing are small. They're minimal. They should not have full responsibility on the day of your wedding to go and do a huge job that puts them under pressure, doesn't give them time to get ready, all of those kind of things. So just think about, although you have like a huge support network around you, the impact that that's going to have their enjoyment of the day. Okay, we all know, and we'll come back to this one, that speeches are a big deal, right? And we know that puts pressure, but so do other things like friends making the wedding cake and things like that. So just have a think about what kind of jobs you want to give them.
Yeah.
That they are quite minimal on the day, so they can still enjoy themselves and not feel too much pressure. But also that you've told them about it all in advance, so that they really understand that that's what they need to do, when they need to do it, and how to do it. My one caveat for this though, if you have a coordinator or a wedding planner or someone there as kind of your point person for the day, please check in with that person, right? So my big thing is, if there's a friend or an uncle or whoever it might be as the MC, acting as the MC or the Toastmaster on the day, like I always come up to them, I'm like, you do not say anything until I've told you to. Like, you do not. I am your nagging wife on the day. I'm really sorry. I'm here to bug you. And that's a really big thing, because like they might be like, okay, well, we're going to announce when everyone's going in to sit down for the meal at 4:00. Well, guess what? I might need it at 4:30 because I've got one more tea light to light, or something along those lines.
Is this your job tagline? I am your nagging wife on the day.
No, my job tagline was, I'm like your best friend on the day who doesn't get drunk. Yeah, I am there to make sure. That was my tagline. It was like, I am there as your bridesmaid on the day, your best friend who does not get drunk. So I'm there as your point person. But yeah, it's that thing. It's like they mustn't say things. So just, there's a few caveats. It's like check in with that person. Just make sure that whoever's leading and running the wedding knows who you are and what you're meant to be doing.
And talking of timings,
Yeah.
getting ready before the ceremony, like how long do people need? What can happen? What do we need to think about?
Okay. There's a lot to be said for this one as well.
Okay. Get your notebooks out.
So if you're having a makeup artist in the morning of your wedding, we're going to start with that side of things. Then your makeup artist should send you a schedule, okay, of the timings that they need to adhere to. They're going to ask you when you need to be ready by. That doesn't mean 10 minutes before the ceremony. It doesn't mean the ceremony time. You need to think about first look. Are we doing first look with dad? Are we doing first look with someone else? Brothers, maybe? Something along those lines. Is how many photos does the photographer want to do? Work this in.
What time are they getting there as well? Because if you want bridal prep photos, if you're having that part of your day, your photographer needs to be there in time for that.
Oh my God.
You've got to factor that into as well, the cost of your photographer.
Yeah. So, and also coming back to that one actually of what time you're going to be doing the photos and everything is like where. So where are you getting ready compared to where your ceremony is going to be? I'm going to cough. I'm really sorry. That's been coming for a while. So it's about where your ceremony is going to be.
Yes.
Now, if your ceremony is further away, what you need to think about is getting there. So say you've said, right, I've ordered the taxi for 12:30. It takes 10 minutes to get there. Right. Well, does that mean that you need to be there in 10 minutes or does that mean you need to be there in 20? Because what time are the wheels actually moving?
Yes.
You need 10 minutes faff about time, right? Everyone needs a nervous wee. Someone's forgot their lipstick. Getting the dress into the car, making sure you've got your bouquet, you've dried your bouquet before you get into the car, all these things. Like we need a good 10 minutes faff about factor of actually getting into the car. Once you're in the car, it's more than likely that mum's forgotten her glasses. So she's going to run back upstairs. She's going to go and get her glasses. Then come, like all this stuff happens, right? So that rather than giving yourself all that stress just before you're transporting to wherever you're going, is give yourself the time to do it. And then actually the wheels roll at the right time that's going to get you to the venue.
And I think as well, we need to talk about the type of ceremony, because we did touch on this at the beginning. Obviously, if you're having a civil ceremony, there's interviews beforehand.
Yes.
Which I think, a lot of people don't realise.
No, they don't. You're interviewed.
Yeah.
You can be interviewed separate or you can be interviewed together. But you have to, again, allow time for that. Now, if we're going with a bride and groom, so generally we'll find that the groom will already be at the venue potentially. So he'll have his interview first. And then once the bride arrives afterwards, the groom's nicely shut away in the room. It's all fine. The bride will then have hers. But you do need to allow that half an hour. The interview's around 10 to 15 minutes.
You say this, but I remember at my sister's wedding, the interview took about 20 minutes. My sister and my
Was she
dad were
10?
in there for ages. I don't know, they were having a lovely time. And I was in the corridor with a 3-year-old.
Pacing.
And my mum, we were having to have races up and down the corridor to entertain her.
Yeah, the interviews are long and you can't be with anyone else in the room.
No.
It's just that person that's being interviewed legally that has to happen. So again, allowing for all of this in your timings, then tell your makeup and hair artist what time you need to be ready. That's really important. Also, things like if you're having one car, ferry everybody back and forth.
Yeah.
Oh my God, can we check for like temporary traffic lights and roadworks and I don't know, road closures that day? Don't just go on, well, normally it's this, because that doesn't work. And like, obviously I'm going to say, please just don't have one car that ferries you because it's never great and never runs on time. But if you have to, then that's fine. But just do the homework to make sure that, you actually have allowed plenty of time for that to happen.
And we should talk about when you get to the ceremony, right? So, all this is done, it's all dealt with, you've had your nervous wee, your dress is dry, everything's gone to plan. That walking down the aisle thing, because can I tell you, I think I could probably say I've helped millions of couples get married. I've been doing this a long time, right? I'm working at Hitch for years and years and years. And for the first time ever, I was in a wedding last year, and I stood at the top of the aisle and I thought, this is terrifying. And that's not what I thought it was going to be. I was like, yeah, I know. Take your time.
Yeah.
Walk down the aisle. I mean, the dress I wore, oh my God, it was my favourite thing I've ever worn in my life. And I was like, you're going to have your moment. Here we go. And when I watch back, I literally trot down that aisle. I trot so fast because in my head I was going, don't fall over, don't fall over, don't fall over. Everyone's looking at you. Oh my God, everyone's looking at you. This aisle is really long. Oh my God. But when I watched it back, yeah, I literally ran.
I did exactly the same at my best friend's wedding.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. I think that first time you walk down the aisle, if you haven't done it before, you're not very conscious of it. You walk and you walk fast. Like, it's hard. It's really hard. So definitely walking slow. And it depends. Like, some people have their songs that they're walking down the aisle to quite specifically timed. And that's great. That works. And if you don't, it also doesn't matter. But just think and just practice if you can and things like that. Just, take a breath, take a moment and just walk slowly. But honestly, we say it at every wedding and you just can't control that in that moment. It's so hard. Like, you just said it yourself. You've helped loads of people get to that point and you know that you're meant to walk slowly down that aisle and the adrenaline just gets you. And I get it.
What happened?
Yeah. But luckily, the photographer's mainly interested in whoever's actually meant to be walking down the aisle, like the bride or,
I mean, they were very interested in me. But yeah, I would say, what not to do. Do not trot. Do not trot down the aisle.
Not trot, run. Yeah.
And I also tell people to take that time to practice, if you play the song, just have a little walk around to it, see how it feels. And if you can, in the outfit you're going to wear, because, fishtail wedding dresses are a very different thing to walk in than an A-line wedding dress. Yeah. And then an A-line, if you've got a full skirted one, that's a whole other thing as well. So take some time, even if you're just walking around your spare bedroom. I think, it doesn't have to all be done up, but just get used to how it moves. And sitting, I also tell people as well, practice sitting in your wedding clothes because bone corsets, things like that, if they're not the right length, you're going to be quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that one's a tricky one because everybody has their dream dress in their head and that's what they look like. And it does mean that sometimes you might choose a design that's not as practical. Everyone loves a good boogie. The dress might allow for it. But then that's your opportunity to possibly get a second dress.
Love a second dress.
Love a second dress. More cash, more fun, more party vibes. So I think that if you are getting something that's quite structured and quite tight and you don't think you're going to be comfortable, then that is the option for that. But it is difficult, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, when you get your dress fittings and things, you can talk for the bridal shop about what you want to do if you're the kind of girl who loves a little slut drop. Going back to the Geordie Shore days there, then you need to make sure you've got the room to do that in your outfit, And I think as well, you need to think about who is walking down the aisle. If you have got 7 bridesmaids, you're going to have to allow a lot more aisle time than if you haven't got any or you've got 1. And mums, what about mums?
Mums walking down literally, what not to do at your wedding is adhere to a tradition that doesn't fit your family, right? So obviously, traditionally, we have father of the bride walking the bride down the aisle. And I'm so pleased that I am seeing so many variations of that now, whether that is someone walking down by themselves, whether that be with dad, granddad, mum, brother, sister.
Their own partner.
Yeah, definitely had that. Or both walking down the aisle as well. Yeah. I've done it quite a few times now where I've got one partner lined up outside and they've got to face forward. They're not allowed to turn around. And the person that they're marrying is just a few people behind them and they can't look, they can't turn around. And it's wonderful. It's such an exciting moment. They're so close. So just have a think about that. Make sure it fits your family. Make sure that you are breaking the traditions that suit you. And represent you as a person.
Because, a lot of weddings are traditions.
Yeah.
And we adhere to them because that's what you're told you should, but it's just old dead guys, right?
Now, don't get me started on traditions. There are some things that are in, we'll come back to it other episodes.
I think we need a whole other episode for this.
Don't. So, I think there is a point where there's sometimes a reason for a tradition that actually works practically and logistically that means that your wedding works better for you and your guests. But there are definitely things that don't need to be there. What side you stand on and things like that. It used to be because that was the sword and protecting and all of this.
No swords at your wedding.
Got no swords at the wedding. Don't worry about what side you stand on. All of these kind of things can definitely be broken to suit you. But otherwise...
we'll save that one for another time. We'll do the traditions episode another time. But I do think, don't think you just have to follow what's sort of set in stone. It's not.
No.
So if you want more people to walk down the aisle, do it. Just make sure you plan your songs accordingly and you practice, and then they're not going to trot.
Everyone's going to trot. Honestly, it's such a hard one.
We cursed by that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you a question now you're really going to like. What about children at wedding ceremonies? What are we doing with them? Because,
Are we talking about children walking down the aisle?
A little bit of both. At the ceremony in general. Are they going to walk down the aisle? What's the plan?
You really want to make me unpopular, don't you?
This is a safe space where we can discuss the views.
All right, so let's go with walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's a bit bigger in terms of children and where they're at. Right. let's say that we've got like a age limit here of like under 4s.
Yeah.
Okay. I think after 4, 5, 6, they're good. They're
in theory,
like they should be okay. Under that, it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's really tricky, and I have to say that it's quite awkward.
Disclaimer, I have a 3-year-old, so I feel like I can.
Okay.
I'll be the voice of the child here.
Can you be the voice of the child, and I'll be the voice of the person who's just watched this so many times? And there is a caveat to what I'm about to say in that it varies.
Yes.
It really does vary.
There are
you know
ways.
your child.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know your child. You know whether or not they're going to be comfortable. But this is what I see. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, they are normally not walking down with mum or dad.
Yeah.
All right. So they are prized away from parent. Watch the parent go into a room that they don't know. They're in an outfit they're not comfortable in. So they're pulling at it, they're tugging at it. And then they've got like some petals or something shoved in their hand. Going with flower girl right now. It just falls apart at this moment. There are tears. Okay? So what I would say is a few things that we could do to make this a little bit better for the children. Bribes work. Bribes definitely work. Okay, so first of all, show them the room. Yeah. Show them the aisle. And show them where they've got to end up. They don't know. They just walk in and they just look so bemused and so bewildered, and they're just overwhelmed because there's all these people silent looking at them. Now, you know that if you take your child to a new place, they might become a bit insular, they might become a bit shy, and they normally hide behind a leg or something like, it's not great for them. But we're doing that on your wedding day, and we expect them to nicely walk down the aisle with all these petals and it all go perfectly, and it doesn't. What actually happens is that they get to the end, they normally tip the petals right at the start. Or I had one once, she was adorable. She got a petal out and placed it down. She got another petal out and placed it down. She got all the way down, and I'm looking at the timer on the music. Yeah. I'm looking at the timer on the music, it's going down, and I'm like, oh God, they better walk fast for once. So I think about what you're going to give them. Think about what they're wearing, and think about if you can have them with an adult that they know walking down the aisle. I think that's really important. So, for example, at my wedding, I had 2 flower girls. They were just out over the ages that we're talking about, but they had signs. Yeah. And the little one had a little sign that said, "I'm just here for the cake."
Me too.
Which was pretty accurate, to be fair, at that age. And the other one had a sign saying, "This is your last chance to run." So there was no expectations what they did with their sign. If they dropped it on the way or whatever happened, like it was good. He didn't run, by the way, it was okay. So that was fine, and they knew where they were going. They're going to get to the end. They knew where their seats were, and it really, really makes a difference. But also expect them just to cry, and sometimes it not to work.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. If you have that expectation and you don't mind, then it's fine. I mean, with my little girl, she was a flower girl. She was given a wand, not a basket, because
wands are good.
Yeah, because she could not be. She did ride it like a horse. But that's fine, that's fine. My sister was very chill about that. Yeah, and she held my mum's hand, so she was with someone she knew. I'd just gone, so she knew she was following me. Yeah. She was bribed.
See, that's the thing. If she was holding mum's hand, then that's good. That works, and because it's familiar and they're not on their own. Yeah. And that's much, much better.
And she got the best response, I think, out of anybody going down that aisle, and she loved it. And yeah, she was heavily bribed. Because bribes work. So that is all we have time for this episode. And next episode, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the actual wedding reception, the party, what comes next. So make sure that you like us, that you are following us, subscribed, all the things you need to do so you know when the next episode lands. And we'll be talking to you then about what to do at the wedding reception.